The city never truly sleeps, and on a particular Tuesday evening in the heart of Solara City, its pulse throbbed with a familiar, indifferent rhythm. Skyscrapers, shimmering behemoths of steel and glass, scraped against a bruised purple sky, their countless windows reflecting the hurried dance of rush hour below. Taxis blared, street performers played their forgotten tunes, and a river of humanity flowed, each person a solitary island in a sea of motion. Most rushed, heads down, minds lost in the immediate, the urgent, the next task. Among them was Tim Anderson, a marketing professional at Viridian Innovations, a prominent tech firm whose name whispered future in every boardroom. Tim was good at his job, sharp, creative, and endlessly driven. But tonight the usual hum of accomplishment felt flat. He clutched his briefcase, his tie slightly askew, his mind a jumble of project deadlines and a low-grade weariness that seeped into his bones. He was a good man, Tim, with a decent heart, but like so many in the urban grind, he could be caught in the current, swept along by the daily routine, rarely pausing to truly see. As he turned onto a less chaotic side street, seeking a brief respite from the frenetic pace, something, or rather someone, caught his eye. Amidst the usual urban detritus and the fleeting shadows, a solitary figure sat on a concrete planter box. It was a woman, cloaked in layers of worn, mismatched fabrics, her head bowed slightly. She was black, perhaps in her late 30s or early 40s, with a presence that was both unassuming and strangely arresting. Most passers-by simply veered around her, their gazes sliding past, their minds already elsewhere. But Tim's pace slowed. He saw the cardboard sign resting beside her, "Fell on hard times. Any help appreciated. Standard." Yet, there was something in the way she held herself, a quiet dignity even in destitution, that snagged his attention. He could have walked past. Many did. He could have tossed a few coins and hurried on, easing his conscience. But a quiet compulsion, an instinct he couldn't quite name, tugged at him. He didn't know why, but he felt compelled to offer more than just spare change. He remembered his grandmother, a woman who always said, "A kind word warms more than a winter coat." He approached her cautiously. "Excuse me," he said, his voice softer than he intended. "It's a cold evening. Would you like a warm coffee? Or a meal?" The woman slowly lifted her head. Her eyes, dark and surprisingly luminous, met his. They held a profound weariness, yes, but also a sharp, intelligent spark, a resilience that defied her circumstances. It was a flicker he almost missed, a hidden ember in the ashes. There was no immediate gratitude, no effusive thanks, just a steady, assessing gaze. "A hot coffee would be appreciated," she replied, her voice low, raspy, yet with a distinct clarity, an unexpected refinement that sent a curious jolt through Tim, not the voice he'd expected. As he walked towards the nearby cafe, a simple, transactional act, Tim felt a strange shift within him. He wasn't just doing a good deed, he was stepping into an unknown story. He returned with a steaming cup of coffee and a warm pastry. She took them with a small, graceful nod. "Thank you, Tim," she said, surprising him by remembering his name from their brief introduction. "My name is Aisha." He lingered for a moment, an awkward silence stretching between them. Most people, he realized, preferred to offer charity from a distance, to maintain the invisible wall. But with Aisha, that wall felt permeable. He found himself asking, Are you okay out here, Aisha?" She took a slow sip of her coffee, her eyes scanning the hurried crowd. "Okay is a relative term, Tim," she replied, a faint, knowing smile touching her lips. "I've learned that sometimes the ones rushing by are more lost than those of us sitting still." It was a profound observation, delivered without a hint of self-pity, that struck Tim deeper than any corporate seminar on mindfulness. He looked at the endless stream of suits and smartphones, suddenly seeing them with Aisha's eyes, a flurry of distracted faces, driven by unseen anxieties. He realized he was one of them. There was something about Aisha, something beneath the worn appearance, a quiet dignity that spoke of a different life, a different past. She wasn't just a face in the crowd, she was a story waiting to be told. He didn't know then that this small, spontaneous act of kindness would be the first tiny spark in a chain reaction, an unforeseen domino falling that would not only rewrite Aisha's fate, but irrevocably turn his own world, and the world of a major corporation, completely upside down. He had offered a hand, unaware that this brief, unseen glance would reveal a crown lost in the urban shadow, waiting for someone to see it again. The encounter was far from over. In fact, it was just the beginning of a profound and utterly unexpected journey. The city, with its indifferent hum, melted into the backdrop as Tim found himself drawn back to that street corner day after day. It wasn't pity that pulled him, not entirely. It was the enigma of Aisha. He'd offered her a hot meal, a moment of fleeting connection, and in return, he'd received something far more profound, a challenge to his own perceptions. Aisha wasn't like the other street dwellers he'd occasionally encountered. She never begged, her gaze always direct, insightful. When he brought her a coffee, she wouldn't just thank him, she'd make a surprisingly astute comment about the morning's headlines, or offer a philosophical observation on the human condition that made him pause. "The loudest cries often come from the emptiest souls, Tim," she'd mused one chilly afternoon, watching a flashy sports car speed by. "True hunger, for body or spirit, teaches a quiet resilience." Her intelligence was undeniable, almost startling in its depth. One day he mentioned a complex merger his company, Viridian Innovations, was considering. To his astonishment, Aisha offered a shrewd analysis of market trends and potential pitfalls that mirrored, almost exactly, the concerns of his senior executives. "When the winds of change blow through the marketplace, Tim," she'd said, her eyes distant, "it's not the biggest ships that survive, but the ones most agile in adjusting their sails. And sometimes, those sails are made of trust, not just capital." Tim's curiosity became an obsession. He tried to gently probe, to learn about her past. Aisha, however, was a master of evasion. She'd offer cryptic remarks, a sad smile playing on her lips. "I've learned that sometimes, Tim, to find yourself, you first have to lose everything you thought you were. It's a brutal education, but a necessary one." She spoke of a biography written in shadows, of a life that crumpled like a house of cards. There was a profound, almost poetic sorrow in her voice when she described her downfall not with bitterness, but with a weary acceptance. "It was a series of dominoes, each one tipping the next," she'd once confided, her voice barely a whisper, "until the whole structure, everything I had, everything I knew, came crashing down." The pain in that fleeting moment was raw, real, before she quickly recomposed herself, her usual stoic mask firmly back in place. He sensed a profound weight, a secret grief she carried, one that even the biting winds of the city couldn't chill. He started bringing her books, classics, business journals, even poetry. She devoured them, her insights sharpening with each passing day. He noticed a subtle shift in her too. A glimmer of the woman she once was began to surface, like a fragile bloom pushing through concrete. She still wore the worn clothes, but her posture seemed a little straighter, her eyes a little brighter, as if their quiet conversations were slowly rekindling a forgotten spark. Meanwhile, back at Viridian Innovations, preparations for the annual Vision Gala were in full swing. It was the pinnacle of the company's social calendar, a glittering affair of the city's elite, celebrating innovation and success. Tim, caught in the whirlwind of event planning, found his thoughts drifting back to Aisha. He saw the contrast so starkly: the opulent ballroom, the polished executives, the air thick with ambition and champagne, and Aisha, sitting on a cold sidewalk, possessing a wisdom that many in that ballroom, despite their wealth, seemed to lack. An audacious, almost impulsive idea began to take root in Tim's mind. It was reckless, unconventional, perhaps even crazy, but something inside him, an intuition he couldn't ignore, told him it was right. He envisioned Aisha, not as she was now but as the intelligent, elegant woman he glimpsed beneath the layers of hardship. He imagined her in that ballroom, her quiet dignity challenging the superficiality around her. The next evening, with the city lights shimmering around them, Tim sat beside Aisha on their usual bench. He took a deep breath, his heart thumping. "Aisha," he began, "Viridian is holding its annual Vision Gala next week. It's a big event, and I want you to come as my guest." Her reaction was immediate, a sharp intake of breath, her eyes narrowing with a mixture of disbelief and offense. "Tim," she said, her voice surprisingly firm, "do you see me? Do you truly believe I belong in such a place?" "I see you, Aisha," Tim countered, meeting her gaze directly. "More clearly than perhaps anyone else has in a long time. And yes, I believe you belong. Not just there, but anywhere your spirit chooses to shine. I'm not offering charity. I'm offering an invitation to a friend whose company I value. I want you to experience a different side of the city, to remind yourself of what else exists." He saw the flicker of doubt, then something else, a deep, almost painful yearning. The city's noise faded as Aisha held his gaze, a silent battle raging within her. She was a woman of mystery, a survivor of a past Tim couldn't fathom. But in that moment, he saw the raw human need for connection, for acceptance, for a chance to reclaim a piece of what was lost. He hadn't just offered a meal, he'd offered a bridge, a fragile connection back to a world she'd left behind, or that had left her. The silence stretched, thick with unspoken questions and a burgeoning, unexpected hope. Would she take the leap of faith he was offering? The gala was only days away, and the weight of her decision hung heavy in the crisp night air. The silence that followed Tim's invitation was thick, heavy with unspoken questions. Aisha's eyes, usually so guarded, held a flicker of something raw. Fear mixed with a deep, almost painful longing. "Tim," she finally said, her voice barely a whisper. "You don't understand. My clothes, my hair, everything. I am not gala material." "No, you're not," Tim replied, his voice gentle but firm. "You're more than gala material, Aisha. You're a woman of intellect, grace, and an incredible spirit. Those are the things that truly belong, and as for the rest, we can fix that. It's not about making you someone you're not. It's about letting the real you shine through." He went on to explain his plan. A discreet hotel room for a few days, not a grand suite, but a quiet, clean space where she could rest and begin to feel human again. He assured her of his respect, his complete lack of ulterior motives. He simply wanted to see her truly seen. The next morning, the city hummed with its usual indifferent rhythm, but for Aisha, the world was about to shift. Tim picked her up, a sense of nervous excitement tingling in the air. He'd booked a room at a modest, well-regarded hotel on the outskirts of downtown, a place known for its privacy and quietude. The initial moments were awkward. Aisha, accustomed to the raw, exposed life of the streets, seemed hesitant to cross the threshold into the crisp, ordered lobby, but Tim's patient, reassuring presence slowly chipped away at her apprehension. Once inside the room, Aisha walked slowly, touching the clean sheets, running her fingers over the smooth countertop of the bathroom. There was a profound stillness about her, as if she was absorbing every detail of comfort she had been without for so long. Tim left her to rest, promising to return later with essentials. When he came back, armed with toiletries, new undergarments, and a simple change of comfortable clothes, he found her sitting by the window, her eyes distant. "Thank you, Tim," she said, her voice soft. This feels like a dream I'd forgotten how to have." The next day was dedicated to the transformation, not a makeover, but a reclamation. Tim took Aisha to a carefully chosen boutique, far from the high-end stores that would make her uncomfortable, but still offering quality and elegance. Walking into the bright mirrored space, Aisha's initial reaction was almost a flinch. She was a stranger in this world now. But Tim was patient. He encouraged her to try on various pieces, to see herself in a new light. He watched as she tentatively picked out a dress, a deep sapphire blue, with a simple, elegant cut that hinted at a natural poise. Her fingers ran over the fabric, a fleeting memory perhaps. When she stepped out of the dressing room, a gasp escaped Tim's lips. It wasn't just the dress, it was how she carried it. The fabric draped beautifully on her frame, highlighting a statuesque elegance he had only glimpsed before. Her eyes, still holding the wisdom of the streets, now also held a spark of forgotten confidence. She looked at herself in the mirror, and for the first time in what felt like an eternity, a genuine, soft smile touched her lips. It was a private moment, a silent acknowledgement of the woman she once was, re-emerging. Next, a trip to a quiet, discreet salon. Aisha's hair, once matted and tangled by the elements, was meticulously washed, conditioned, and styled. Her face, though etched with the lines of hardship, still possessed a striking bone structure. A light, natural makeup application simply enhanced her features, bringing out the warmth in her skin tone and the depth in her eyes. As the final touches were made, and she looked at herself, the metamorphosis was complete. She wasn't just cleaned up, she was radiating. The dignity she had carried even in despair now shone through, amplified by the simple act of self-care and respect. Tim, waiting patiently, felt a lump in his throat when she emerged. It wasn't just her stunning appearance, it was the profound shift in her aura. She moved with a newfound grace, her shoulders back, her head held high. The homeless woman he'd met just days ago was gone, replaced by a sophisticated, captivating woman. Yet, beneath the polished exterior, he still recognized the strength, the deep intelligence, and the quiet resilience that had first drawn him to her. "Aisha," he breathed, genuinely awestruck. "You look incredible." She offered him that rare, gentle smile. "Thank you, Tim. I almost forgot what this felt like." As they left the salon, Tim, still reeling from the transformation, noticed something peculiar. Aisha, usually so careful to avoid eye contact, seemed to scan the busy street with a practiced, almost professional eye. As a high-end black car, a luxury sedan he recognized as being popular with top executives, glided past, she instinctively flinched, then quickly averted her gaze, her composure momentarily faltering. It was a fleeting, almost imperceptible reaction, but it lodged itself in the back of Tim's mind, a subtle twist, a question mark hanging in the air. Who was this woman, really? What was it about that car, that fleeting glimpse, that had shaken her so profoundly? He dismissed it as an understandable reaction to the overwhelming sensory input of the city, but the question lingered. The gala was tomorrow night, and with each passing hour the enigma of Aisha deepened, promising a night of unexpected revelations. He couldn't have known just how profound those revelations would be, or that the man driving that black car would soon play a pivotal role in the unfolding drama. The air in the grand ballroom of the illustrious Sovereign Tower was thick with the scent of lilies and ambition. Chandeliers glittered like frozen starlight, reflecting off polished marble floors where the city's elite mingled, their conversations a low hum of power and pretense. Tim, impeccably dressed in his rented tuxedo, felt a knot of anticipation tighten in his stomach. Tonight was the night. He looked at Aisha, resplendent in her sapphire blue dress, her dark skin glowing under the soft lights. She moved with an unfamiliar elegance, a quiet confidence that belied her recent past. Still, he could sense a flicker of unease beneath her composed exterior, a tension in her shoulders as she navigated the glittering crowd. Whispers followed them like shadows. Colleagues, noticing Tim with an unfamiliar, stunning woman, exchanged glances. Sarah, Tim's perpetually gossipy cubicle neighbor, raised an eyebrow, a smirk playing on her lips. Tom, his friendly rival, offered a wide-eyed stare. Tim met their gazes head-on, a quiet pride swelling in his chest. He was proud to have Aisha by his side, proud of the transformation he'd witnessed, and proud of the woman she was becoming. Aisha, to his amazement, handled the attention with remarkable poise. When introduced to a junior executive, she engaged in a brief, insightful conversation about the tech sector, her intelligent responses surprising even Tim. Her smile was genuine, her handshake firm. She was a natural, adapting to the environment with a swiftness that continued to deepen the mystery surrounding her. Tim almost forgot the nagging question from the previous day, her brief, involuntary flinch at the sight of that luxury sedan. Then, a hush fell over the room. The moment everyone had been waiting for. On the grand stage, bathed in a golden spotlight, appeared Mr. Elias Thorne, the formidable CEO of Viridian Innovations. A titan of industry, Elias Thorne was known for his sharp mind, his ruthless business acumen, and more recently, for the profound sadness that had etched lines around his eyes since the mysterious disappearance of his beloved wife Elizabeth 3 years prior. He moved with a heavy grace, a man who carried the weight of an empire and a profound personal loss. Elias began his speech, his voice resonating with authority, yet tinged with a weariness that even the most oblivious guest could detect. He spoke of Viridian's growth, its future, but his gaze seemed distant, unfocused. Tim, listening intently, felt a shiver run down his spine. This was the moment, the culmination of a journey he never intended to embark on. As Elias's eyes swept across the vast, glittering expanse of the ballroom, his voice momentarily faltered. His gaze, once distant, suddenly locked onto a figure near the grand entrance, onto Aisha. The microphone slipped slightly in his hand, a metallic clink echoing through the suddenly silent room. The energy in the air shifted, palpable, thick with an unspoken recognition. Elias Thorne, the man who commanded boardrooms and millions, stood frozen, his eyes, wide with disbelief, filled with a raw, primal emotion. He slowly, almost imperceptibly, began to descend the steps from the stage, his eyes never leaving Aisha. Every step he took was deliberate, as if he were walking into a dream, or perhaps a long-lost memory. The murmurs in the crowd began, first whispers, then growing into a low, confused hum. All eyes followed Elias Thorne's unwavering path. He reached Aisha, stopping just inches from her. His hand, trembling slightly, reached out, as if to confirm her reality, and then his voice, choked with a grief and a hope that had been buried for years, rang out, clear and shattering through the stunned silence of the ballroom. "Elizabeth, my God! Elizabeth, is that truly you? You're alive!" A collective gasp ripped through the room. The whispers erupted into a roar of shock and disbelief. "Elizabeth, The name echoed, reverberating through the opulent hall. Everyone knew the story. The CEO's wife, Elizabeth Thorne, vanished without a trace 3 years ago, presumed dead, or worse. The enigma of Aisha shattered into 1,000 pieces, revealing a truth more shocking than anyone could have imagined. Teen stood beside her, utterly blindsided. The world spun. Aisha? Elizabeth Thorne? The CEO's wife? His mind raced, replaying every cryptic comment, every knowing glance. The flinch at the black car, the insightful business analyses, the deep, unspoken sorrow. It all clicked into place with a terrifying, exhilarating clarity. He had brought the CEO's missing wife to the company gala. Aisha, no, Elizabeth, met her husband's gaze, her eyes brimming with a complex mix of sorrow, relief, and a quiet strength. Yes, Elias, she said, her voice steady despite the tremor in her hands. It's me. I'm alive. The room was a maelstrom of flashing cameras, frantic whispers, and stunned faces. Reporters, sensing a scoop, scrambled forward. Elias, tears streaming down his face, pulled Elizabeth into a fierce, tearful embrace. It was a reunion years in the making, witnessed by hundreds of shocked onlookers. Amidst the chaos, Elizabeth gently pulled back from her husband, her gaze sweeping the room, then settling on Tim. 3 years ago, she began, her voice calm and clear, cutting through the din. I walked away from everything, not because I didn't love you, Elias, or because I didn't value my life, but because I had lost myself. The pressures, the expectations, the constant pursuit of more. I became a shadow of the woman I was meant to be. I needed to disappear, to find myself again, to understand life from a different perspective. She paused, her gaze meeting Tim's. I needed to live without a name, without a title, to see the world, and myself, with truly open eyes. The implications of her words hung in the air, transforming the glamorous gala into a scene of raw human drama. Elias, still reeling, looked from his wife to Tim, a profound realization dawning in his eyes. He saw the kindness, the empathy, the humanity that Tim had extended to a woman he believed was simply homeless. He saw the embodiment of the values he, in his grief and ambition, had perhaps lost sight of. The entire event, once a celebration of corporate success, had become an accidental stage for a deeply personal, incredibly public revelation. The missing wife was found, not through a detective's search, but through a simple act of human connection. The casual invitation from Tim had not just brought a guest, it had brought a crown back to its rightful place, illuminating the true nature of wealth, compassion, and what it truly means to be seen. Elias Thorne, the powerful CEO, now saw his company, his life, and his priorities through a profoundly different lens. A storm was brewing, not just of questions and gossip, but of a seismic shift within the very foundations of Viridian Innovations. The stage was set, not just for a family reunion, but for a corporate revolution. The Sovereign Tower Ballroom, moments ago a shimmering tableau of corporate success, was now a whirlwind of stunned whispers and flashing lights. But amidst the chaos, a profound stillness settled around Elias, Elizabeth, and Tim. The CEO of Viridian Innovations, the man who commanded empires, stood in silent awe, his gaze moving between his reunited wife and the young marketing professional who had unknowingly orchestrated this miracle. Elias Thorne's initial shock quickly morphed into a profound realization, as Elizabeth calmly, concisely, and with startling clarity articulated her 3-year journey of self-exile, of shedding the layers of wealth and expectation to rediscover her core humanity. Elias saw everything with new eyes. He saw the hollowness of his own relentless pursuit of profit without purpose, the quiet despair that had settled in his heart since her disappearance, not just from missing his wife, but from the void created by an unexamined life. He saw how his grief had driven him deeper into the isolating pursuit of corporate dominance, further away from the very human connection his wife had desperately sought. I had to see the world from the ground up, Elias, Elizabeth explained, her voice carrying a newfound wisdom that transcended any boardroom lesson. To understand that true value isn't measured in quarterly reports, but in a simple act of kindness, a shared meal, a moment of recognition. She looked at Tim, a deep gratitude in her eyes. Tim? He saw me. Not the woman I was, or the woman I had become, but simply me, a human being in need. As Elias turned to Tim, his formidable CEO facade crumbling to reveal a man deeply humbled. Tim, he said, his voice thick with emotion. You have taught me more in a week than a lifetime of business school ever could. You have reminded me of what truly matters. And in doing so you have given me back my wife. And perhaps, given me back myself. The very next morning, the corporate world braced itself for the fallout. Would Elias Thorne retreat? Shield his wife from public scrutiny? Would he simply dismiss Tim as a well-meaning employee who stumbled into a family drama? Instead, Elias Thorne called an emergency press conference. With Elizabeth by his side, radiant in her quiet strength, and Tim standing respectfully in the background, Elias delivered a speech that would ripple through boardrooms and communities alike. For too long, Elias declared, his voice firm, resonating with a newfound conviction. Viridian Innovations, like many corporations, has focused solely on the bottom line. We have built an empire, yes, but perhaps we have forgotten the human element, the very communities that allow us to thrive. He looked at Elizabeth, then at Tim. My wife's journey and the extraordinary compassion shown by Tim have forced me to confront a harsh truth. True innovation isn't just about technology or profit. It's about human connection. It's about empathy. It's about leveraging our resources not just for shareholder value, but for societal good. And then came the bombshell. Elias announced the immediate launch of Viridian Lifeline, a groundbreaking corporate social responsibility initiative unlike anything the company had ever undertaken. It wasn't a token charity donation, it was a systemic commitment. Viridian Lifeline would focus on comprehensive support for individuals experiencing homelessness, not just shelter, but job training, mental health counseling, educational programs, and pathways to sustainable employment and housing. And to lead this vital initiative, Elias continued, his gaze falling squarely on Tim, I have personally asked Mr. Tim Thorne, Tim Anderson, that is, to lead this initiative. His unwavering humanity, his empathy, and his unique understanding of the challenges faced by those on the margins make him the only choice. Tim stood stunned. From a mid-level marketing associate to leading a flagship national initiative, it was an overwhelming proposition, a dizzying ascent. He felt the weight of the responsibility, but beneath it a surge of exhilaration. This wasn't just a job, it was a calling. He accepted, his voice clear and resonant, a quiet determination in his eyes. Launching Viridian Lifeline was no easy feat. There was skepticism from some board members, accustomed to the old ways of doing business. Logistical nightmares abounded, securing partnerships with local charities, building trust within vulnerable communities, designing effective and sustainable programs. Tim faced countless late nights, frustrating setbacks, and moments of doubt, but he drew strength from Elizabeth's quiet counsel, Elias's unwavering support, and, most importantly, from the faces of the people Viridian Lifeline was designed to help. He insisted on personally visiting shelters, speaking with outreach workers, listening to the stories of individuals who had been failed by systems and forgotten by society. He poured his heart and soul into designing programs that didn't just offer handouts, but provided dignity and a path forward. He remembered Aisha's words about true hunger teaching quiet resilience, and he built programs that amplified that resilience, rather than undermining it. Slowly, steadily, Viridian Lifeline began to make an impact. The first success stories emerged. A single mother named Jamila who, through the program's job training and housing support, secured a stable position and an apartment, finally giving her children a safe home. An elderly veteran, Mr. Henderson, battling PTSD and despair, found not just shelter but therapy and a community of support, his eyes regaining a spark of hope. These individual triumphs fueled Tim, proving that genuine empathy, coupled with strategic resources, could indeed change lives. Elias Thorne, now a different man, was a constant presence, not just as CEO but as a mentor and a friend. He championed Tim, silencing critics and securing necessary funding. He saw in Tim the embodiment of the values he wanted Viridian Innovations to stand for. The company itself began to transform. Employees, witnessing the profound shift, found new meaning in their work. The profit-over-people mentality slowly began to erode, replaced by a growing sense of shared purpose. Elias was a living testament to the lesson that true leadership is not just about commanding, but about caring, not just about accumulating, but about giving back. The echoes of Elizabeth's journey reverberated through the corporate halls, proving that sometimes the greatest redemption comes not from what you gain, but from what you are willing to lose, and then rebuild with compassion at its core. Viridian Innovations was no longer just a tech giant. It was becoming a beacon of hope, a testament to the power of a single act of kindness, multiplied. And Tim, once a quiet professional, was now at the heart of this profound, inspiring rebirth. The stage was set for a much larger impact, one that would extend far beyond the city limits. The success of Viridian Lifeline in its home city was undeniable. News reports lauded Viridian Innovations, no longer just for its tech prowess but for its groundbreaking commitment to social good. Tim, once an unknown marketing associate, was now a recognized figure, invited to speak at conferences, his story of accidental kindness and unexpected leadership inspiring countless others. But Elias and Elizabeth Thorne knew that true impact couldn't be confined to one city. The needs of communities across the nation were too vast, the lessons too vital to remain localized. Months later, in a pivotal meeting that echoed with the significance of the gala, Elias Thorne announced Viridian Lifeline's national expansion. "This isn't just a program," he declared, his eyes shining with purpose. "It's a movement. And Tim, you are the architect of this movement." He offered Tim the role of National Director of Viridian Lifeline, a position of immense responsibility and even greater opportunity. It meant building partnerships, launching new centers, and spreading the ethos of compassionate innovation across the country. Tim accepted, a humble yet determined light in his eyes. The journey had begun with a simple act of offering a hand, and now, that hand was poised to reach across a nation. His farewell from the city office was emotional. Colleagues, many of whom had initially looked at him with skepticism or confusion, now offered genuine admiration. Sarah, the gossipy cubicle neighbor, even teared up, admitting, "I always thought you were a nice guy, Tim, but I had no idea you were this kind of force." Tom, his former rival, was the first to offer a handshake, a silent acknowledgement of Tim's extraordinary achievement. But the real testament to Viridian Lifeline's impact wasn't found in boardroom accolades or press clippings. It was in the individual lives transformed, the stories that echoed the very journey that had started it all. There was Jamila, the single mother who, after graduating from Viridian Lifeline's culinary training program, secured a position as a sous chef at a thriving downtown restaurant. Tim received a handwritten letter from her, detailing how, for the first time, she could afford a safe, warm apartment for her 2 children. "You gave us back our dignity, Mr. Anderson," she wrote. "You showed us that someone out there still cared." Its heart-centered job wasn't just about a job. It was about reclaiming hope, about breaking the cycle of poverty for her family. Then there was Mr. Henderson, the veteran struggling with PTSD. Viridian Lifeline didn't just provide him shelter. It connected him with veteran-specific therapy and a peer support group. Tim personally visited him months later. Mr. Henderson, once withdrawn and haunted, now engaged in lively discussions, his eyes clear, his voice stronger. "You didn't just give me a roof," he told Tim, a tear tracing a path down his weathered cheek. "You gave me back my voice. You reminded me I'm not alone." He was now volunteering at a local Veterans Outreach Center, extending the same helping hand he had received. These were just 2 ripples in a vast ocean of change. Under Tim's visionary leadership, Viridian Lifeline established state-of-the-art training centers in Atlanta, Chicago, and Los Angeles. Partnerships with local businesses ensured job placements. Mental health services became a priority, destigmatizing the struggles faced by many. The program didn't just offer temporary fixes, it provided sustainable solutions, building ladders of opportunity for those who had been stuck in the shadows. Elizabeth Thorne, now fully integrated back into her life in Elias's, became a powerful advocate for Viridian Lifeline, using her voice and unique insights to shape its most empathetic policies. She often told Tim, "My time on the streets taught me what truly breaks people and what truly heals them. You, Tim, have created a system that heals." Elias, too, was a changed man. His leadership at Viridian Innovations was no longer solely about profit. It was about purpose. The company's stock soared, ironically not just because of its innovative products, but because consumers and investors alike were drawn to its profound social commitment. It was a powerful lesson. True wealth isn't just about financial gains, but about the human capital and moral standing a company cultivates. As Tim prepared for his first national tour, the weight of the journey ahead was immense, but so was the sense of fulfillment. He was living proof that a single act of radical empathy could ignite a revolution. His story, starting with a simple glance on a city street, had blossomed into a legacy. He had shown that a crown, the inherent dignity and worth of every individual, often goes unseen, buried by circumstance and societal neglect. But with a helping hand, with eyes willing to truly see, that crown could be restored, not just for an individual, but for an entire community. Tim knew the journey was far from over. There would be new challenges, new setbacks, new stories to tell. But as he drove away from the familiar city skyline, heading towards an unknown horizon filled with new communities, new faces, and new opportunities for change, he held on to one profound truth. The world was full of people in need, people longing to be seen, to be heard, to be given a second chance. And he, Tim Anderson, once a quiet marketing associate, now a catalyst for national change, was ready to be that person again and again and again. The ripple effect had just begun. The unseen crown was not just a story, it was a living, breathing movement, proving that sometimes the greatest treasures are found not in what you seek, but in the kindness you choose to give. Tim, a man of quiet integrity, showed us that courage isn't always a roar. Sometimes, it's the gentle whisper of compassion that changes everything. He reminded us, especially as Black individuals navigating often unseen battles, that our empathy is not a weakness but a superpower, a force capable of restoring dignity, igniting hope, and building bridges where walls once stood. Elizabeth's story reminds us that true wealth lies not in what you possess, but in who you are at your core, and that sometimes, the most profound self-discovery happens when you shed everything you thought defined you. And Elias Thorne's transformation, a powerful CEO brought to his knees by his wife's journey and a stranger's kindness, serves as a beacon for all. That redemption is possible, that purpose can redefine profit, and that a company's greatest legacy can be found not in its balance sheet, but in the positive change it inspires. If Tim's journey touched your heart, if Elizabeth's resilience inspired you, or if Elias's transformation sparked a new perspective, then don't let this message end here. What's your unseen glance story? Have you ever witnessed or been part of a moment where a simple act of kindness created an unexpected ripple effect? Share your thoughts and experiences in the comments below. We love hearing from our community. And if you're hungry for more stories of unexpected twists, profound acts of compassion, and real-life lessons that uplift and empower, make sure to smash that like button, share this video with someone who needs to hear it, and most importantly, subscribe to our channel and hit that notification bell so you never miss an update. Your support helps us bring these powerful narratives to life. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next story.